Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Adam the Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Mercurial, a card drafting and dice manipulation game by Hyperlixir. You may recall that a while back I did do a preview of this title. In the time since the preview, there's been a lot of little changes and tweaks to it. Therefore, instead of simply giving my final thoughts on the game, I figured it'd be best to completely do the review from scratch. Without further ado, let's dive in! In Mercurial, 2 to 4 players will take on the role of mages who have discovered a land where the laws of magic and its elements are constantly shifting. They will indirectly compete with one another to gain renown by slaying powerful monsters, mapping out this mysterious new land, protecting its citizens from danger, and disarming ancient malfunctioning machines, all by discovering and casting spells to perform various feats. After mages have performed a set number of heroic deeds, depending on the number of players will total up their victory points to determine the winner. To set up, each player will take one of 4 characters: the Arcanist, the Chaosmancer, the Elementalist, or the Enchanter. Each character has their own number of dice, starting mana, and starting acuity as listed on their cards, and they'll gather the appropriate number of each of these. Additionally, each player gains 2 starting alterations, one which gives them extra acuity and one that can transmute void dice, and 1 random artifact alteration. However, this is where a player's chosen class comes in. The Elementalist gets a unique card to replace the standard acuity granted alteration, while the Arcanist likewise has a more powerful version of the transmuting one. The Enchanter takes 2 extra artifacts. The Chaosmancer doesn't gain any additional nor more powerful cards, but we'll see his unique advantage in a little bit. You'll also want to give each player the reference card. Trust me, you'll need them. Once players have set up everything they need for their characters, it's time to set up the table. Take 3 Arcana cards and randomly choose a side for each. These will serve as bonus objectives for players. Take the Prestige and Equilibrium tiles. These serve as reminders and references for players. We'll get to them in a little bit. Also take one of the 2 Mist Rune tokens and slide it into the Equilibrium tile. The side that is facing up does not matter. Next, shuffle Heroic, Alteration, and Spell decks, dealing out 6 cards each and making sure that each is arranged clearly in a row. You'll place the -1 mana token just under the leftmost spell, and the -1 acuity token to the immediate right of that. Place 1 mana and 1 acuity on top of each face-up heroic card. Place 1 acuity each on the leftmost alteration cards equal to the number of players. So if playing with 4 players, place them on the first 4 cards going from left to right. Place any remaining mana and acuity so they're within easy reach of all players, and place the victory point tokens atop of the prestige card. Randomly determine the first player. Give 1 extra acuity to the second player, 2 to the third, and 3 to the fourth player to offset the advantage of going first. With that, each player rolls their mana dice and you're ready to begin. There are 2 types of turns you can take in Mercurial. First is a play and take turn, and the other is a cast turn. Since you'll have no spell cards on your first turn, you'll always begin with a play and take turn. This means that you'll have 2 actions on these turns, which can be done in either order. For your play action, you'll simply choose an alteration card from your hand and play it for its effect. Additionally, all alterations have a secondary effect listed in the bottom left corner of the card. You may choose to play them for these rather than their normal effects. We'll take a look at some example alterations in a moment. Take actions give you options from a wider variety of places. You may take all of your discarded alterations back into your hand, take 1 alteration from the market and immediately place it into your hand, or take 1 spell from the market. When taking any alteration other than the far left card, you'll take acuity from the reserve and place 1 on each card to the left of it. Regardless of which card you choose, you'll also take any acuity that happens to be on the card you claim. When taking a spell card, you'll pay a number of dice, acuity, and mana in order to match its cost. For example, we see that this card requires 2 fire dice. However, one of them can be substituted with 2 mana. Alternatively, you may always use 2 acuity in place of 1 mana, and may mix and match so long as the total cost is fulfilled. The spell card in the leftmost slot always costs 1 less mana to purchase, and the one to its immediate right costs 1 less acuity. Whenever you purchase an alteration or spell card, you'll need to replenish that row at the end of your turn. When you do so, slide all cards to the left to fill in any gaps you may have created, then draw cards from the respective deck until there are 6 cards for the next player to choose from. Before I explain cast turns, let's take a look at some example alteration cards and explain what they mean. This is not a comprehensive list, but it is meant to give some examples to showcase what you might run into with the game. Alterations are primarily used to manipulate your dice. Every player will have 2 starter alterations, though as aforementioned, the Elementalist and Arcanist will have enhanced versions of these. This vial allows you to either take 1 acuity or to perform 2 additional play actions. The Elementalist enhanced version instead allows her to take 2 acuity and perform 2 additional play actions. Meanwhile, this orb requires you to pay acuity. After you do so, you may change a number of void dice to any faces that match other dice you control equal to the number of acuity you spent -1. The Arcanist version of this can also change Aether dice since she has no use for them. Both starter alterations have the symbol in the bottom left, which means a player can alternatively play a starter alteration to change as many Aether dice as they wish to the element shown on their player board. Artifact alterations likewise have a secondary effect to simply take 1 acuity. Skill alterations are those that you'll be claiming via take actions, and have 2 different secondary effects. The first is to choose any 2 of your unspent dice and re-roll them. However, the Chaosmancer may re-roll up to 4 dice whenever he takes this action. The other secondary action is to pay an acuity and discard the alteration in order to perform an extra take action. When you discard an alteration, place it on the bottom of the alteration deck. But what about the primary effects of a skill alteration? There's too many of them to cover comprehensively, but let's take a few examples so you might know what to expect. These 4 cards all use lightning in some way. For the first one, you simply choose lightning dice up to the number of savior sigils that you control +1 and change them into water or earth dice. Every character starts with 1 sigil, and you can earn more by acquiring heroic feats. This next card allows you to change as many lightning as you like into fire. Alternatively, if you control at least 2 Pathfinder sigils, you may reverse it and convert fire into lightning. It should also be noted that when you see a diagonal line like this, it means it has an alternative effect you can choose. In this case, it allows you to pick an unspent die and flip it to its opposite side. Next, this one requires you to control at least 1 lightning die, but you don't have to target it. You may choose any number of your unspent dice and convert them into void dice. After that, you take acuity numbered to the equal of Beast Slayer sigils that you control +2. And finally, this card requires you to pay 3 acuity before using it. Then, convert any number of lightning dice into any combination of earth and fire dice. After that, take acuity equal to the number of Runebreaker sigils you control +2. This can potentially return a profit, but you still have to have the 3 acuity to play it in the first place. Although most of your turns throughout the game will be play and take turns, the point of them is to lead up to cast turns, where you'll attempt to claim a heroic card and potentially an Arcana as well. Each heroic card can be obtained by paying either a set number of Ruin or Restore points, with Restore requiring higher values. If you have both Ruin and Restore, the lower value will be subtracted from the higher value. So if you have 7 Ruin and 4 Restore, then you have 3 Ruin total. When you use a cast turn, you'll play all the spell cards you currently control. If you have a spell card, you must cast it when you take a cast turn, so be careful what you pick and choose. Spells tend to fit a similar theme dependent upon their element. Fire spells will always produce rune points, while water always produces restore. Meanwhile, a handful of cards are both fire and water and can produce the caster's choice of either ruin or restore regardless of which dice were used to pay for it. Lightning cards reward momentum. They grow more powerful the more cards are cast in a single combo, multiplying the number of cards by a set value to get the card's final ruin or restore points. Earth cards tend to be a bit more varied in their effects. They may give you either ruin or restore equal to your acuity. They can convert ruin or restore into one another. And potentially the most powerful spells in the game are those that can double or triple the value of a single other spell, but they have no innate power of their own. Finally, every element has a number of cards that can be enhanced by Aether. They have a standard value which is displayed in white on the left. However, if you have at least 1 Aether die when you cast, you'll use the empowered value of these cards on the right instead. Alternatively, the Arcanist is always considered to have Aether, and thus will automatically use the empowered value of any such cards. But before we're finished with casting, I must explain Equilibrium. As aforementioned, when you cast, Ruin and Restore cancel each other out. However, if your Restore and Ruin are exactly equal, then you've attained Equilibrium with your spell combo. When this happens, you gain a number of either Ruin or Restore according to the chart presented on the Equilibrium card, as well as bonus acuity. Additionally, if you manage 12 or higher Equilibrium points in a combo, you'll also gain an extra victory point token. Furthermore, you'll take the Mistrune token to use on a future turn. It can either be used to turn a single die to one of the specified elements, or can be used for a boost to Ruin or Restore on your next cast. However, you must be wary. There's only one Mistrune token, and if another player achieves Equilibrium before you use it, then they'll steal it from you. After you total up your spell combo, you may obtain 1 heroic card, and only one with a value that you meet or exceed. For example, to acquire this card, you may pay either 12 Ruin or 16 Restore, and it'll grant its owner 6 victory points at the end of the game. Additionally, this sigil indicates that the card is a Pathfinder feat. As aforementioned, this will empower certain alterations. Furthermore, at the end of the game, collecting sets of the same symbols will grant additional victory points. If you have any leftover points beyond what's required to claim the heroic card, you may qualify for extra VP via Prestige. For every 3 Ruin or 4 Restore beyond the minimum, you'll take 1 victory point token, with no upper limit. Finally, if your combo qualifies for one, you may also claim an Arcana. I won't go into all of them individually, but as a single example, this one requires you to use at least one each of Fire, Lightning, and Earth spells in a single combo. If you manage this, you'll take the tile immediately, and at the end of the game, it'll provide 2 victory points plus an additional VP for every 2 fire spells that you cast. If you're eligible for multiple Arcana with a single combo, you may choose which one to take, but may still only take one. Regardless of other factors, when you gain a heroic card, you'll take the mana and acuity on, then immediately draw to replace it, once again placing another mana and acuity on the new one for whomever obtains it. You'll then reclaim all of your spent dice and mana and discard any acuity on spells. You'll discard all your spell cards, but make sure to keep your discarded spells separate from other players. Then re-roll all of your dice, even if some of them went unused. Play will continue like this until a single player has acquired a certain number of heroic cards. For example, a 3-player game enters the end phase when any player has accomplished 4 heroic feats. At this point, players will continue in normal play order and cast any remaining spell cards that they have. After that, players will total up their victory points according to the heroic cards that they've collected, their victory point tokens, bonuses from any Arcana they may have obtained, and finally, they'll gain a bonus according to any matching sets of sigils they've obtained. Be sure not to forget the one on your character sheet. It still counts for bonuses. For every pair of matching sigils, you'll gain 1 VP. For every sigil that you have 3 or more of, you'll get 1 VP per instance of that sigil. Total up your points, and whomever has the highest score wins. In the case of a tie, the player with the most points coming from Arcana wins the game.
And those are the standard rules for how you play the game.
Also included in the standard box are rules for playing Prodigy mode. This is a score-focused mode where the spell deck will act as a timer. Once the deck runs out, you'll have one more turn, and after that, you'll total up your score. For greater challenge, they've also given a list of video game style achievements which you can attempt to do while playing solo mode. Wait a minute, my name's in the credits. I honestly was not aware of that until a few minutes before filming this scene. The Deluxe Kickstarter version of the game also comes with the Challenger mini-expansion. This comes with 3 character sheets. One of these is a 5th playable character, the Mistcaller. The Mistcaller has 2 primary benefits. Firstly, their innate sigil is wild and can change as often as you'd like, including one final time during scoring. Secondly, they begin the game with a Mist Rune token, allowing them a bit of extra help in setting up their initial combo. That aside, the expansion also includes Challenger mode. This includes dummy player versions of all 5 classes in the game, allowing you to add AI opponents to play against in either solo mode or even a game with other players. Each challenger has different rules for how they claim and cast spells, and each is labeled with a difficulty from 1 to 3 stars. There's even rules to play cooperatively with another player against 2 challengers at once. On to component quality, the first thing to talk about is the cards. These are tarot sized with a smooth finish. In addition to their large size, the artwork on these is simply top notch. I know I gushed about this back during the preview, but as far as amazing artwork goes, Mercurial is easily in my top 5 games. The heroics and Arcana look especially amazing. The other major factor of the game are the dice. There's 24 included in the game, with each side representing a different element. The dice are engraved, with the engravings painted in. These look great and are easily visible even from across the table, though I must confess I don't know how colorblind friendly these are. Tokens are quite chunky, with VP, Mist Runes, and the discount tokens all being especially thick. Just look at how noticeable the difference is between the Equilibrium tile and the Mist Rune token. And while on the subject of tokens, it should be noted that the VP tokens have foiling on them to make them glimmer in the light. Mana and Acuity are both represented by plastic gems, and each of them, as well as the VP, have a dedicated cup to easily store them. The lids are made so that they can rest underneath the cups while open to easily be accessed during gameplay. It should also be noted that the game comes with an insert to hold everything. The side of the box even instructs you on how to fit everything into it. This keeps everything easily organized and makes setup and cleanup a breeze. If you have the Deluxe Edition, there's also a couple of upgrades to note. Firstly, you'll have a pair of metal discount tokens to replace the standard cardboard ones. The Acuity one looks great, but I must confess that I'm a little disappointed that the Mana one seems to simply be painted blue, though I also must admit that I don't know how practical it would be to use blue metal. You'll also have an outer sleeve for the game with artwork unique to the Deluxe Edition.
and I must say, this is a standard which other sleeves should follow. Typically, these types of sleeves are made of thin cardstock that's easily torn or otherwise damaged even just by regular use, but not here. Instead, the sleeve is made of the same sort of cardboard as the box itself and is much sturdier as a result. Before we wrap things up, there are a couple of accessories I wanted to take a look at. Firstly is the playmat, which you've seen for most of the review. As you can see, it's quite colorful and has space for the entire drafting area, with designated spots for where everything goes. It adds to the already phenomenal artwork of the game itself and has stitch edges to ensure it lasts, and is approximately 2 by 2.5 feet. The other accessory we have is the dice tray. These are your standard 6-sided dice trays made of faux leather with a foiling effect for decoration. Each showcases elements on the dice and makes a good reminder for which elements are on the opposite sides of one another. They look excellent, though on a personal note, I do feel that they look a little too close to occultic symbols for my own tastes.
All in all, Mercurial is an impressive, puzzle-heavy game that takes familiar concepts and blends them together in a unique and interesting way. I typically tend to enjoy dice manipulation games, and this one is certainly no exception. The drafting mechanics add a unique twist, which incentivizes players taking cards that have been out longer, and the equilibrium tile adds a fun risk-reward mechanic to the game. It can be a little difficult for newcomers to grasp, as there is a lot going on with all the different symbols on the various cards. But the player aids do a great job in helping this along. It isn't one that I would recommend as a gateway game, but if you enjoy number-crunching, math-heavy titles, this will definitely be a fun time. There have been a lot of minor changes since I did my preview of the prototype version, and it really shows that the designer was really dedicated to making sure that the final release was as polished as possible. While I do realize that it was intended as a Kickstarter exclusive, I do hope that they make the Challenger mini expansion available later. More playable characters are always a good thing, and on top of that, it does add a second fun solo mode to the game. As for Mercurial itself, it plays great and it looks amazing. I've had the pleasure of looking at a lot of really impressive games lately, and this one is certainly no exception. In conclusion, I find Mercurial to be worthy of an excellent 9 out of 10.
And before we wrap up, I should take a moment to mention that Mercurial has 3 different tabletop simulator mods, allowing you to play the full game. You have one for the standard game mode, one for Prodigy mode, and one for Challenger mode. Each has the players uniquely set up to help ease players in and teach them how to play the game. If you're not sure if the game is for you, or if you just want an easy way to play with friends across the globe, you should definitely check it out.
Mercurial should be hitting retail soon. If you're interested in signing up for updates, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Mercurial? Which games do you think have the best artwork? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.